This is Mrs. O'Neill for Chapter 4, Review Questions and Problems. You're going to go through the video by pausing when you see the question or the problem. You can either mentally or write down the answers. Some of them, again, have multiple parts. Then you're going to continue playing the video to see the answer. And at that point, again, you're going to pause, read the answer, either, again, mentally figure out if your answer was correct or compare it to what you wrote down. So here's number 1. Answer. 2. Answer. Remember that Democritus was the very first person that came up with the word atomos, right? But he had no proof, right? He was just a philosopher. Number 3. And when you answered this, could you give the why? If you said that the electrons attract each other, why? Or if they repel each other, why? There's your answer. Number 4 is 2 parts. You're comparing the neutron and the proton. You're comparing both of their charges and you're comparing their masses. And there's your answer. Number 5. And remember, in your book or Bozeman Science, they talked about the plum pudding model. I like to compare it to the chocolate chip cookie model. Number 6. Again, this is asking in Rutherford's gold foil experiment, what did he expect versus what really happened? And there's your answer. Again, pause and read over that and make sure that it makes sense. Number 7, so now you are labeling the 4 different parts of that gold foil experiment. And there's your part. So again, make sure that you're pausing, you're looking over. Make sure that you can kind of draw this as well. If I ask you to, this was one of those most important experiments in this chapter. So can you draw the 4 parts? Would you be able to label the 4 parts and understand what they represent? Number 8, so in this experiment, what were the 2 things that were discovered? And your answer? Number 9. Again, you're not only answering the answer, but the why. And there's your answer and the why. Number 10. Answer. Number 11. Answer. And we want to remember that that atomic number is really what can identify each of those elements, right? So the element is identified by the number of protons because the number of protons never, ever change. Later on, we'll talk about the electrons changing, and you also already know that the neutrons can change because of isotopes, and that's questions later. So number 12, fill this without a periodic table. So with the information that they give you in number 9 going across, they give you the atomic number and they gave you the number of neutrons. Can you come up with the mass number and the number of protons? So pause again without a periodic table. You may use a calculator if you need to, but come up with those answers. All right, so hopefully you paused, you came up with those answers mathematically. Hopefully you did not use a periodic table because you have all the information that you need, but you might have used a calculator. So again, pause and make sure that these are the numbers you got. Now for 13, however, because it's element names, and I also gave you the element symbols, now you must use a periodic table. I do not expect you to memorize every single element. So it says how many protons are in the nucleus of these atoms. Again, use a periodic table now, and you might, oh yeah, you should not need a calculator. So again, hopefully you paused. That might have taken a little bit of time to find, but again, I want you to get used to using that periodic table. The more you look at it, the easier it is going to be finding those elements. So here is your answers. So hopefully you paused and checked those over. Number 14. So I came up with 3 different ways, so hopefully you came up with at least 2 of those. Number 15. Again, a little bit more comparison of the atom versus its nucleus. Hopefully you came up with that. 16, so again, you might have to pause, use a calculator. All the information is given to you just as a reminder, though a couple of reminders. Yes, they gave you the isotopes mass here, but because they gave you a better mass to use or a more accurate mass to use those numbers. And because they gave you the abundance in percent, remember you want to change percent to a decimal before you actually use it. So again, this might be one, you might want to write down or scratch paper, or if you want to, you can do the whole thing in your calculator all at one time. Hopefully you paused and came up with an answer of this. So make sure to check your work, however, because I will, there might be a question or 2 on the test that not only do you have to give the answer, but you have to show all the work. So you'll get partial credit for showing the proper work. Number 17 is very similar to what you just did, but now instead of 2 isotopes, there are 4 isotopes of lead. But look at the information they give you and information that you want. So you need to find the mass first, right? They give you the abundance, they're giving you the percentage, but they're not giving you the mass. Now remember that the mass can be protons plus neutrons. So pause and make sure you have that mathematics first. Hopefully you got this as your masses for those 4 isotopes. So now you have the mass and you have the percentage. Now you can calculate the average atomic mass if you didn't do so already. And there's the work and your overall answer. And as another reminder, we want to remind you that there's 2 checkpoints here, right? The average atomic mass should be, or looks like an average, so it should be between 204 and 208, which it is. And the one that has the most abundance, it should be closer to that. So this one might be a little tricky because there's 4 isotopes, so it's going to be between 207 and 208. Oh, I'm sorry, 206 and 208 really have the more abundance here. If I look at this, but again, 52%, you're still going more towards the 208 here, versus your 207, because you kind of, here's our 50% is this way. So this one kind of is like right in between. So a little trickier, but again, it's a checkpoint. Number 18, this one's a little tricky. So you're reading the statements going across. So you're going to read statement 1, figure out if it's true or false, and then because is your statement 2 true or false. So this is a little tricky. So again, you might want to write it down like A, TT, or TF, or FT, whatever, and then check your answers, because I'm giving you the answers all at one time. So hopefully you paused and you have a true or false for A, B, C, D twice, and you got those as an answer. And again, even if you just want to mentally read it all and make sure that you're understanding why is it true versus why is it false. Number 19, this is one of those above and beyond questions. This is not on the test, but again, I always like to give you some kind of a challenging problem. So here's our challenging problem. Pause. You might have to do a little mathematics, a little bit of thought process here. And if you got that as an answer, great. If not, again, you might want to pause and just kind of read it over just to see how you would have mentally, or you would have strategically figured out that solution. And you might have done it a little different way, but I always like to show you how you can use dimensional analysis to get from one unit to another. Okay, so just to give that to you as an aside as well. All right, guys, hopefully you're ready for the test.